Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another design review, Wolfram language design review, language completeness and consistency, a variety of topics. All right, the first one is a sophisticated and complicated topic that I'm surprised is first on the list here. Go ahead.
Well, that's because we have invited several people, including folks from the European time zone. So I wanted that to be first. So obviously this is a big topic that can go in a number of ways. Last time we talked about this new data structure called experstruct. I don't know if there's something that can be demoed now, Tom.
Yeah, it's this $13 version.
I'm sorry.
What version
he wants to know if he wants to know what build you're using. So he's asking you to evaluate dollar version.
Just a second. I'm seeing something that's wrong here. Hold on 1 second. Oh dear. Okay. I'm sure that I'm not running.
Just type dollar version.
Right? We don't. Yeah, we don't need the prototype version build, but we just need to know that it's a reason enough. Okay, so that's
you're running 13.0. You're not running.
Yeah, I know. It's right. Because I wasn't told. Okay, head branch build, is that correct?
Yeah, head branch is great.
Yeah.
Has startup gotten slower?
I think so.
Yes, it has.
We better fix this. Can somebody, Avery, can you make sure that that's taken to QA and that we try and figure out what's going on there?
Yep, I got a note of that.
Okay.
Right, so type create data structure. Yeah, that looks good. Create data structure. And then experstruct.
So probably the documentation is behind, which is why it's not.
And then give it the initial value, like list 1,2. Yeah, there we go. Right. So now you can do normal of that, or.
Well, what can I do that's more interesting with this? I mean, so if I
do 1,2, let's make something that we want to stop evaluating. So do the list.
Right, but can I feed this a hold or not?
You could put hold around this. Yes, do hold of.
No, I understand that, but what I'm asking
is hold of 1 plus 2.
Okay, but what I'm asking is there a way to do a create data structure? Wait, where I give it just 1 plus 2 without the hold there?
No.
That's what I'm saying?
No.
Okay, so we could do that.
No, I mean, you could do unevaluated, presumably.
Wouldn't bank on it.
Okay.
Well, that's okay. So that's what I'm asking.
Well, let's try it. That would be an interesting. We should try it. See what happens.
Okay, but let's see what Tom was wanting us to do here.
Right. So now do say like parts, or do replace. Make that back into list 1,2. Great. And then take that output and do replace part, the operation. Yeah.
Which one? Replace part like this?
Right. Percent bracket. Yep. Great bracket. Replace part 0 goes to plus. And that's made a new data structure that's plus.
Okay. How do I get out the held version of that?
Full form would give you.
No. I want to get a hold of blah 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 out. If I say normal, I get back.
Then you could do %5 construct with hold. That was the function we made. So make another one and then do
Okay,
normal.
but that's not what I want, because I want something where I just get out the held version.
Yeah, fine. Okay, well, we could make something like
so
that.
we should make that. I mean, we should make that.
Fine.
That's
what
I mean,
do you want to call that? Yeah, that's a good idea.
held expression or something. We could call it. We could have one that's called expression, which is the same as normal, and one that's called held expression.
That's great.
Okay. And then on the way in, we need some way to really, be able. One thing we're going to need is a way to take a front end, something that I've just entered, like, whatever it is, something like this, right? That I've entered in the front end,
right,
and get that into a data structure. How would I do that?
So I'm don't quite understand.
Can you try create data structure with unevaluated and see what happens?
Yes, but I'm saying there needs to be some mechanism that's going to come up quite a bit. You've got code that is in a notebook, for example, and I want to make an AST from it, for example. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
So maybe there needs to be a thing that reads the box.
Hold on. We talked about this. It's not just create data structure. There's loads of things. There's like, saving into a file. There's writing over Matlink. There's creating JSON. All of these things, it's the same problem. So maybe we should have a uniform way to solve it. That's what we talked about, rather than just some special feature for extra.
Okay, so let's talk about all these different cases. I mean,
right.
What we're saying is you've now got a kernel level version of the experstruct. Correct.
That you can work with as an expression.
Right. So what we need to know is, how do you get into and out of that thing? See what I'm saying? So actually, first thing I should do here.
For getting out of it, you just suggested, good idea, expression and held expression. I think those are great ideas.
Okay. So what is this?
Well, that's the full form of the thing. Like everything, it's serializable into the full form.
I see. So this is simply, that's just data arrow, whatever. And there might be some metadata in the experstruct. That's just a statement of the experstruct.
Right. I mean, it's basically a fake full form, right? So that
it's not fake, Itai, because if you paste it in, it'll recreate the data structure.
Well, it will recreate. Well, yes, but it's a raw
serialization of the. It's a serialization.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about where this goes into and where it comes out of, so to speak.
Right.
Okay. So you want to be able to take this and routinely make from this data structure. You want to be able to write it to a file. For example, I want to be able to trivially get from my plus thing here, from this line 5, I want to be able to trivially get that to come out in a notebook as 1 + 2. And that's the problem. I want to be able to have that be written in a notebook as 1 + 2. I want it to write it to a file as 1 + 2. I want it to write it to WSTP as 1 + 2. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, we want all those things to happen. Correct.
Right. But so in particular, I want to be able to take this data structure and I want to be able to do those things with it without turning it into normal again, and without having the data structure wrapper be around the things that come out.
Right.
Right.
But I mean, in some contexts you might want that, but obviously you can't want that in general, or
no,
I mean, it won't save to the notebook.
Yeah. Okay. But what you want. Okay. Listen. The thing is, it has it's a multi-personality creature, right? On the one hand, it is data structure of whatever, a fully, inertified structural object. Okay. On the other hand, it is the expression that is represented by that. Am I making sense? So for some purposes, you want it to behave like the expression, and for some purposes you want it to behave like the full structural data structure. Am I correct?
Well, no, I don't agree with that, and I don't think Christopher would either, right? He was pointing out how dangerous having this multi-personality is.
No,
right?
Okay, listen. Think of it. Okay, I'm saying it wrong by having multiple personalities. I'm saying
but
you need to be able to, when you deliver it into a notebook or into a file or whatever, you need to be able to deliver it having stripped the data structure wrapper. You see what I'm saying?
Well,
yes,
maybe, but I don't. I mean, I suppose we could have some. Right. I mean, I'm not sure I really see how that's possible. Right. I mean,
don't tell me it's impossible yet. Don't tell me it's impossible.
I will tell you that it's impossible, Stephen, if I think it's impossible.
Okay, but
right?
it's
if right, either it's a data structure or it's a normal expression.
I know.
Structure,
so let's think a little bit.
It stays a data structure, and the moment you extract it, right, it's going to go into the evaluator.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. That's correct. Unless it doesn't go to the evaluator because it goes to a file, WSTP, a notebook, a notebook cell, or any of those other things that don't go to the evaluator. See what I'm saying?
What do you mean? The notebook cells don't go to the evaluator? Of course, they go to the evaluator.
I understand. If you press Shift Enter, they go to the evaluator. But I would
in order to get into the notebook, they have to go through the kernel, which of course is going through the evaluator.
Okay, that's why we've got a problem here. But remember, things like defer, for example. Defer does something.
Goes through the evaluator.
I understand, but look what it did. It made an expression that I can copy here and put there, and it is the raw expression. Do you know what I'm saying? When I run it through the evaluator, it does that. But what I'm saying is, what we need is something where, from the data structure, it is very straightforward to do two things. One, let's say I've got a notebook and I want to do code analysis on the notebook. Okay, the thing I'm going to want to do is to take the cells in the notebook that have things like this in them and immediately turn them into data structures before it enters my code. I never want to see this. I want to see it as a data structure. See what I'm saying? Even though stored in the notebook, just like stored in a file, it is the raw ASCII characters. Does that make sense?
Possibly.
So, Stephen, can I ask you a question?
Right. I mean, right. Right. I mean, but right. This would not be but that would not be a function that's tied to data structure. I don't think. Right.
I'm not sure.
Right.
No.
Let me finish my sentence, Stephen. Right. Okay. It's because right. The reason defer evaluates to itself, right, and then it has typeset rules that basically tell it to typeset as if it weren't there, right? And so you could do something like, right, have some sort of notebook level function that takes the cells in the notebook and does make expression on all of them, and then feeds the make expression, returns things wrapped in hold complete. So you could then take you could turn that into a data structure and delete the overall hold complete, or maybe you directly feed the contents of the hold complete into a data structure, whichever way you want.
Okay, before we tangle ourselves down in the implementation, can we talk about what we want to achieve? Because, okay, let's just look at a few things we want to achieve. So, for example, something like this, not sure it's the right exact syntax, but you see that this would make some sense, right? Import from
wouldn't it be data structures?
Yeah, it probably would.
Right, just like it's held expressions.
Yes, it probably would
be like experstruct. I mean,
yeah, it probably should be. Okay, so the experstruct.
Experstruct is slightly special, I think. So.
Okay, experstruct. I don't know. Okay, but you get what the functionality would be.
Right.
Right. It would return a list of data structures that are then completely frozen. right? You don't have to worry about things blowing up on you or anything.
Right.
This is taking a file and it's just reading it as experstructs. And I'm suggesting that, my question now is things like get. Let me just put this in the right place. Where should I put this
Well,
now?
get is inherently, I don't think get is in part of the story, because get is inherently reading one expression and then evaluating it before going on to get.
I agree.
All right, okay.
Code transformation folder.
Code transformation, thank you. Okay, so, all right, I'm admitting on get that it isn't, well, okay, get is a question mark as far as I'm concerned, because I could imagine something like get that would, okay, so the question is there a sort of an experstruct get, okay, of file dot WL, okay, which would return, am I crazy here? Yeah, I think I'm crazy.
You're
I
crazy.
think one wants import.
You're crazy. This is a little bit like Brenton's code analysis does things like that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking for.
I know you know. So right.
It's something that brings it in, but the whole point is that a get will run all the lines in the file and then return the last one. So really one wants an import type thing instead.
Yeah, correct.
So I'm just wondering whether there's sort of an analog. This is not the right name, but just like we have binary serialize. Is that crazy? Where you're taking an expression and you're turning it into this binary form, right? Binary serialize of 1, 2, 3 or whatever. Okay.
Right. Well, I think that's going right. I think serialize is right. Well, I don't think we should use serialize, deserialize, but I think in particular, right, binary serialize is going the opposite way, right? It's taking an expression and turning it into this other thing. And we're talking, right? We import obviously solves the problem of how to take expressions from a file and turn them into experstructs. And maybe we want a 2experstruct that's
which is the equivalent
first.
of this, basically.
Right, and we can make that one hold first, and then you can literally just type in what you want.
Yes, I agree. That seems sensible to have that be hold first.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be okay. So now the question is, okay, let's go through some more use cases. Okay, I'm looking at this cell in the notebook. How do I take that cell in the notebook and let's say I've got a button that's a code analysis button somewhere. Okay, the first thing it wants to do is take the box form of that cell and turn it into an experstruct.
Right. Well, which is right. I mean, if we have 2experstruct, that's super simple, right? We make expression the cell, and then we apply 2experstruct to that expression, to the hold complete that comes out of make expression.
Well, you're saying a different thing there, which is you're saying that 2experstruct could strip. The alternative would be that 2experstruct.
No. I said no. I literally meant apply as in the function apply. Right. We replace the head hold complete with 2experstruct, and
so I would like to make an argument that perhaps 2experstruct should not be hold first, but one should routinely put held expressions into it. That will be more flexible.
Unevaluated.
What's that?
Or unevaluated.
Yes.
No. Unevaluated is a horrendous hack. It really is.
You feel about unevaluated as I feel about sequence.
I'm with you on sequence as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Anyway,
but
I want to walk through this workflow a little bit more carefully because I don't think this is quite right yet. Okay. So let's understand. Okay. Let's look at what one would do. See, I just feel like, okay, I don't even, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, right, I'll be channeling Christopher here and say, right, I mean, in order for 2experstruct to be safe for code transformations, it can't be changing the expression. So I think we want it to be hold first.
Okay, that's a fair point.
And I mean, basically, the implementation of that is create data structure of experstruct, hold of blah, and then take the first part.
Yes, that's what it is. That's all it is. So you could implement it even as we speak. Okay.
So out of curiosity,
yeah,
Stephen, for your use case of selecting something in the notebook and then having it come in as an experstruct, what would you expect to happen if what you have selected is not, semantically, yeah?
I think it has to be an error. What's that?
I said it beeps.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
Okay, but so one of the points is that right now we have Command-Shift-E, which gives us, that kind of thing, right? And I'm just trying to think about how one would actually do this. We need to have a meeting about the modernization of the notebook programming functions, which is certainly going to be related to this.
But, right. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's cells of cell style goes to input to grab all the input cells in your current notebook. And then you notebook read this resulting cell objects and do whatever you want with those expressions, like applying make expression.
Well, the cell object and make expression, I never use these things. Make expression gives a hold complete version of it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, we should see that workflow, but that doesn't sound obviously hopeless. I mean, it's a little bit multi-step, and I'm kind of wondering if you're writing a button, don't we have things like paste button and copy button and things like that, which will take the selection and do things to them? See what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And I'm wondering whether we could use those. That's not the right one. What's one where you take the selection?
What about the inactivate button? Don't we have something like that?
Yeah, we have. Well, do we? I mean, we have. What do we have here? We have a right click. We don't, but we could have something like that. We could have, just like we have iconize here, which, by the way, is so useful. It really should get much promoted in this menu. That's Avery. That's a note for the user assistance
group. Okay, got it.
For me, that's the most used thing in this right-click menu is iconize, uniconize. What about other people?
Well, I mean, I would almost always use the keyboard shortcut. Or a value,
which I don't know what it is, because annoyingly, it's not in the right-click menu, which is another thing.
We've been through this, Stephen. This is the correct behavior on Mac. It's Control Command period. Control Command single quote.
What do you know? Cool. Well,
I think if you go to the edit menu, I think it has the keyboard shortcut.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Well, there, I learned something useful here. Okay, but in any case, the thing what I'm trying to say is, you are trying to make a button that takes this as an experstruct. What is the best way to do that? If you try to make a button that will just wrap a function around this, there's a nice way to do that.
I mean, there's notebook selection, which you can notebook read, notebook selection to get the cell expression, and then you can then you can proceed from there with make expression.
And right. Well, so you believe I'm still claiming that there's a more direct path that we should provide. But in any case, that's at least a path.
Right. There's I mean, there's like copy to clipboard, right? So there are things for getting things to and from the clipboard. I don't know that there's a function that directly creates a button, and there's click to copy, obviously.
I mean, I think you'd probably use button with like notebook apply or something, or.
See, there's another case. Let's take click to copy. Okay. Let's imagine. Yes, click to copy is a good example. Okay, so let's walk through that. Click to copy wants to copy code, like it wants to copy something like 1 + 2. Doesn't want to copy the 3. In other words, if the click to copy, you fed something in to click to copy. Okay, so here. Okay, but this is not hold first, is it? Oh, I see. Click to copy defer creates a button that displays and copies as the unevaluated form.
Right, because these are both typesetting constructs. So, right, this all happens at typesetting time and not at evaluation time.
Okay, so this then becomes a click to copy of that, which is that. Okay, so what I'm trying to make sure of is that if you have generated a data structure inside that, you've done code transformations, and then you're making the click to copy be that transformed code, that there's a fairly quick path from the thing you have as that data structure to, so here's the missing thing, I think. I think what we need is something where effectively, it isn't quite this, but defer of data structure does the right thing. See what I'm saying? We need something that will unpack the data structure. Well, so one way to do that would simply be to have, just as we said that there will be a held expression. Okay, so we could say held expression, and we could also say deferred expression. You see what I'm saying? And that would be the equivalent of defer of the extracted expression from the data structure.
Right. So basically, I mean, this is maybe a little bit too into the weeds, but right, we could have something that, right, extracts the held expression, replace it, and then returns.
That's an implementation, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, do you agree that the point here would be that this would allow you to go from the data structure to a thing that walks and talks like, this for purposes of the front end? I think that's a useful thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Sandra is commenting on the right click menu that we could remove, cut, copy, paste, and so on. Yeah, we should.
Well, certainly not copy as. I mean,
I know.
That is the item I use the most from the right click menu.
Okay. We need to review the right click menus. Different meeting, that's the user assistance meeting. Let's get an item there to do that.
Right. Yeah. I want to shift direction a little bit and point to sort of the first two subsections in the agenda there.
I'm happy to do that. But
can I just ask, in the chat, I put a couple of things. Can you just paste them in, Stephen?
Yes, I can, but I'm going to comment on something Sandra has said in the live stream, and then I want to look at these. Sandra is saying, would not look for those because they are shortcuts. Get help could show up when something is selected. You mean?
I think you might be talking about the idea of operator, well, not the selection rafts idea, that when we select something, right now we have the hover rafts, but we also talked about you select something and then something shows up.
That's a good idea. That's for user
which has been right. I mean, and that's something that's been discussed, and sort of some planned features are waiting for that to be implemented.
Right. Okay. All right, Tom. Okay.
Yes. Evaluate that. Now do normal of that. percent normal. Right, so E-type, I think that was something you wanted. I don't know if you still want it or maybe I was confused, but you wanted to do map, but evaluate things in a held expression, and that's doing that.
Well, it's just one of a million different potential functions that directly work on experstructs.
Right.
Okay, so I agree that's something that is sometimes wanted, but I don't understand why that works.
But what it's doing is it's just takes out the one, it maps the function, it does a map and evaluates that, and then inserts it into the output. So it doesn't rely on, it evaluates things as it goes along, it's explicitly calling eval rather than relying on eval of the result.
Right. I have a question, Tom.
Which
I thought you wanted that. You said you wanted that last time I'm sure, but maybe I misunderstood you. But.
I think you misunderstood.
Anyway,
this is actually a good segue to our next point. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is right because this is so different from what function map does.
Well, that's why it's in a string, because it is slightly different. It is different.
Well, then, but what is the difference here? The difference here.
It's
right. If you just map pounds.
Yeah. Do a map over hold. You see, it's quite useful actually to evaluate the thing as it's being mapped.
Okay, so hold on. Right.
Right. So this is a good segue to the second subsection.
Oh, look at that.
There.
Yes, you've already got this discussion. Okay.
Right. So if you if you open the actual subsection, not just the bullet points up top. Right. So relationship between and
this one here.
That thing there. Yep. And maybe I collapsed this a bit too much. I guess I must have just collapsed all subsections. Right. So with rule and rule delayed, right, you bind the variables, but you don't evaluate. You rely on sort of the evaluator kicking in and doing further evaluate. So, this is something we certainly want sometimes. A rule delayed evaluate that that matches, then evaluates the right hand side and sticks that in instead of, which is a sort of a version, I guess, of what Tom did here with map.
Sorry, I'm confused. So hold on, I'm confused.
Okay.
The point is, there's a question that there's several times at which evaluation can happen. Either standard rule delayed just puts in there, as we saw happen here in a different context.
That's yet another issue. So change that. Type in the following: replace hold of 1, 2. X blank goes to X blank squared, or X squared, yes, at level 1.
Okay, right.
So you see there, it actually, right, it bound the X and then it.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Right, I get it. And there's no way in here to say, I want this evaluated on impact, so to speak.
Well, there are two different issues. One is that, there's the /semi trick, but there certainly isn't a simple way to say I want this evaluated on impact.
There's no wrapper that would allow one to say here, like what we've discussed previously, I think, immediate evaluate.
Right. So one idea was the immediate evaluate wrapper, which we could reuse in multiple different functions. And the other idea was to have a new type of rule, which we called rule delayed evaluate. And we hadn't sort of made a decision on which way was the better way to go.
I don't like having another kind of rule because I think otherwise, if we're going to have an
I agree.
infix form, we're going to use some up characters, and it's and I
But
think
not
there's
everything has rules. I mean, like map, you could use immediate evaluate in map, and there's no rule in map.
Yeah.
Right.
You could do map. Yeah, like your example. You have an example. You have examples there, Itai, like that.
Yep.
That would be.
I like the concept of immediate evaluate. It seems useful, and that one, and then here, what would happen is,
well, then we'd have immediate evaluate around the function.
well, the basic point here would be you could do something more general.
Hold on. Is immediate evaluate a function though?
Yes.
No, it would have to be understood by the outer.
Oh yeah. A function. It doesn't. It's not a function.
How does it? How do you put a pure function into that?
No. Just. I'm just going to say immediate evaluate would do nothing. Just like nothing does nothing, right? Nothing there does nothing, right? Immediate evaluate will be another symbolic indicator that does nothing, or supplied, or whatever we call it, does nothing. And I don't mean nothing in the sense of nothing.
But
I mean
only
it
does
do
something
anything.
in map and replacing things.
I'm sorry?
Correct.
It only does something in map and replace.
Right. And so
and really it's really an indicator to map and replace to
Exactly.
do something special.
Right,
It
just like
doesn't
supplied
actually do
is.
anything
So
itself.
it's not a function. It's a wrapper around. So you could put
It's
a pure function inside immediate evaluate.
Yep.
sure.
Correct.
You could.
Right.
That's correct. Itai, that's correct, is it?
Yes.
Fine. Good. Right.
Okay. I like this idea because I think we have pioneered this notion of sort of things that in an environment do something. I mean, we've had that forever, but nothing is a good example of something which in an environment does something, and otherwise, I'm just confusing myself. Does nothing, so to speak. But you get what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying. So
Right.
immediate evaluate will be a sign, just like supplied is assigned to a function to do a particular thing. This seems very sensible to me. Now, an interesting question is whether a hold first function could take an immediate evaluate.
Well, I don't think. Oh.
In other words, could hold.
Well, hold first,
evaluate.
you can just use evaluate, right? I mean, with hold, you can just use evaluate, right?
I see. And why can't you do that in the cases we're talking about here?
Because evaluate is magic in the evaluator that
Correct.
Right, it sort of
Right.
forces evaluation based on attributes.
It would also be difficult to write code that includes immediate evaluate if it immediately evaluated.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so the point is that this, maybe the name immediate evaluate isn't right. I mean, this is immediate evaluation. Evaluate isn't, okay, so the basic point is evaluate is immediate evaluation for the evaluator, for overriding hold attributes in the evaluator.
Right, which is what happened here. I mean, it didn't make a visible difference in the result, but that x squared was fully evaluated as opposed to symbolically being an unevaluated x.
It's also slightly more subtle than that too, because I mean, if you do map with the function with immediate evaluate, it may actually, since it evaluates every time map evaluates the function, it may wind up taking a lot less memory in some cases. For example, if the expression is big, but then it collapses on evaluation to something small.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think we understand what immediate evaluate does. Now, the point where Tom misunderstood what Ian and I were arguing for is this immediate substitute, which is covered just, in the next little section. Right. And so, right, if you use replace, because you bind directly to variables, you can you immediately stick in what you want. Whereas we don't really have an equivalent of that for map, where, you know, you want to sort of fill in the slots, but you don't want the main evaluation to take place. And I know maybe that's enough of an edge case that but
well, that's
you
this
know, that's
case
certainly
here.
something.
That's
Right,
this case
exactly.
here.
Right. So if you wanted to see there 1 squared and 2 squared, like we got with replace, there's currently no way to do that using
Well,
map.
let me point out that you might want that if you want to then wrap an inactivate around the whole thing.
Sure.
Because, you know, right. So okay. So the cases you're talking about are, okay, cases here are immediately. Okay, so wait a second. So we've got immediately bind things, and patterns are always immediately bound, immediately substituted, right? But function variables are not immediately. What's that?
They are, I think.
Not if it requires one level of evaluation of the function application.
Yeah.
What they're
Yeah,
talking
right.
about, Tom, is just using iFunction versus using, you know, evaluating that includes iFunction.
See, this does not work. So if I say hold, if I say this, that's it. If I say hold a function, what should I do here? XX plus 1.
Well, you want to map you want to map that function across, you know, the list, or across hold of 1, 2, 3. Right. You might expect to see 1 plus 1, 2 plus 1, 3 plus 1, but instead you see, and if you force evaluation, you'll get 2, 3, 4, but you won't be able to get 1 plus 1, 2 plus 1, 3 plus 1.
Okay, as opposed to the thing you were showing me up above here, where we say replace this. X blank goes to X plus 1 at level 1.
Right. And this is part of why
wait.
typesetting code.
What did that just do? Oh, yes, right. It's substituted for the X blank. Yes.
Yep. Exactly. And this is precisely why in typesetting code, where we're almost always dealing with, you know, unevaluated expressions, because we don't want to change the meaning as we create the output. Right, is why I use replace a lot more than map, precisely because I get this immediate binding, which I can't get right now using map.
Right. Okay. So there's one situation is immediate binding, and the other situation is immediately evaluate things, which is different from immediately bind things. Correct? Okay.
Absolutely.
So the case, is there any other case? Like, for example, how do templates work? How do they do binding? Which of these cases are they doing for binding?
They use rules, I believe. And if you use a rule delayed, you can, if you do a expression template.
Okay, so they use replacement semantics, not function semantics, for this binding.
Yes,
is that correct?
I believe that's true.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, we should check that. But I mean,
I'm pretty sure that's true, actually.
Okay.
And you can, because you can inject a held expression by using rule delayed, which is quite useful. If you see what I mean.
Held expression. You can inject an expression. Okay, so I would like to point out that that relates also to our experstruct discussion, because what I'm saying is, you know, if we're going to use experstructs a bunch, one of the places we're going to use them is like code construction. See what I'm saying? And then you might be juggling experstructs all over the place, and then want to write them out in a file using the template functions.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So we've got a whole discussion here about, you know, which we're not going to have right this second, but here it's how does experstruct play with template functions? Okay, because I claim you're going to need to auto unwrap. You get what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but that's I mean, templates are just another case of auto unwrapping things that we've been struggling.
I
with.
know, but what we've got, so immediately bind things, immediately evaluate things, immediately de-experstruct things
Yeah,
is a yet different case. Correct?
it's another case. Yes.
You know, along with that would be to expressioning of things, because that's something we're not able to do. That is, if you've got,
What do you mean not able to do?
well, if you want to insert, if you have a string, I mean, I guess these immediate evaluate things would do that. If you have a string and you want to, and you're using that string, the stringified version of something, to keep it completely frozen. Well, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, immediately evaluate things, also immediately activate, but I guess you get that for free. If you've got an evaluation, you can always put an activate in there to activate things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know whether that makes any sense there. Okay, so the proposals right now are some kind of immediate evaluate and another immediate substitute. I don't think it should be called substitute. I think it should be called immediate bind or something.
Immediate binding?
Possibly. I mean,
that sounds a bit better to me, but I'm not sure I can give you a reason other than it sounds a bit better to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's a question from Michael Solomon. Will this work on cloud expression? What is the relationship between cloud expression and experstruct? There's no good reason that an experstruct couldn't live in the cloud, right? That it couldn't, that.
Well, I mean, other than the fact that it's a raw expression, I mean, you could save the full form of an experstruct to a cloud, to the cloud, to a cloud object, but right, the actual experstruct, right, it's a raw data structure.
Yes.
So,
but
I mean,
my question is,
I don't know.
Well, I think the point is that cloud expression already has the feature that it doesn't just, it can't just evaluate away. It's already a kind of a pinned beetle, so to speak. Well, no, that's a bad analogy, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
It's already something.
Well, it has very restricted evaluation semantics because it's right. I forget what the new implementation is, but it's right. It's stored in some external database.
Right. So my question is, so it's a good question, what the relationship between of experstruct and that actually is, functionality wise, because we could expect that the operations that we do on cloud expression, on experstruct, would also be doable on cloud expression. And that's a good thing for us to make sure we have consistency about.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Tom, you get what we're saying?
Sort of, yes.
What's the sort of? I mean, so just like we say create cloud expression, just like we say create data structure, both of them are now capable of creating expression structures. And so both of them have certain operations you can do on them. And we need to make sure that there's some consistency between those. And there's a certain argument that with cloud expression, it already supports. I mean, I don't know whether it's a good thing, but okay. So it has a definite list of operations that can be performed. Now that's a different design pattern than we're using for experstruct. See what I'm saying?
It is, yeah. I mean, some of the permissions don't make any sense.
No, I know, Tom.
Right.
I know. But there's an interesting possibility here that, I mean, we knew in the design that we did a few weeks ago of the experstruct data structure, we knew that was a defensive design. That is, we explicitly didn't decide we're going to have actual standard functions do things on experstructs, right?
Correct.
But we also said we thought we might add that later. And the important point that Michael has made here is that there is already a pattern, a model for this in cloud expression.
Yeah, except but I mean, experstruct is a data structure, so it should be following the conventions of data structures.
I know, but wait, hold on. There's nothing that says we can't have something which is in fact a data structure and it is able to be operated on like a data structure, but also, I mean, the fact that it's dressed as a data structure, I mean, it's just like we have things, I think, that are dressed as data structures, even though they are in many ways just like other expressions. But they are mutable in their data structure form and so on.
Well, they may be mutable, but they don't interact that way with, right? I mean, none of the data structures operate upon, right, can be operated upon as if they're normal expressions.
Yes.
And so,
okay, anyway, look, let's pin this particular issue, okay? I think this is an issue worth exploring, but we don't have to explore it this second.
Okay.
But please let's not lose that issue as we go forward with the experstruct concept. Okay, but I want to come back to this. So what we've got is a function application. So what we've got is the situation where we have a function being applied and it's inside a hold. And the function, is that only one case of this? Where the binding happens because there's a subvalue of the function. In other words, yeah, the basic question is, does the subcode of the subvalue run? Because the subvalue is only doing the one thing of substitution. See what I'm saying?
Could immediate binding work with a symbol and do like a one-step evaluation using its definitions, or is that not a sensible thing?
Well, that's another issue, right? That's a completely different issue, right? So one-step evaluation of an own value.
Is it the case that immediate binding is really just one-step eval?
No, I really don't think so.
No, it's not.
Okay. I think there are many other cases as well. That's a different thing you're bringing up. One-step evaluation of an own value is interesting in its own right, but it isn't. That's not the general case here.
Right, and we don't. I mean, I don't think we need that, right? Because the map isn't hold anything. So if you give it an F which has an own value. Yeah, I mean, I think
I was thinking of like a down
really
value, like do the do the replacement for the first down value it finds.
The evaluator is way too complicated to just do that.
Yeah.
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 Okay, but the case we're looking at here is this. What we've got is some wrapper around a function applied to arguments that will work even if that's inside a hold. Is that right?
Yep.
Wow, that's weird semantics.
Oh no, that's crazy. Sorry.
Right.
Well,
I
that's what we're
mean,
talking
Within a
about.
map, not just within any held expression.
But maps
Okay,
are
so that
different
won't
things.
work. This
That
won't
work. Good.
work.
Will not work.
Okay, but this, the map of immediate binding of func, whoops, comma list will work.
Yeah.
And that is different from, so we got two different things, which we've got map of immediate evaluate of func, comma list, which goes much further. So immediate evaluate, among other things, does immediate binding. Correct?
yes, it has to.
But it goes further.
Exactly.
And the only difference between them is if list isn't really a list, but is a held object.
Right. Well, I mean, if it isn't a held object, then both of these are equivalent to the just func.
Right. Except subtly, internally it may be different. I mean, like I said before, you could avoid memory blow up or things like that.
Right.
How could you wait. You're saying even if list evaluates, this would be different semantically?
Right, because the way map is implemented is it creates all the expressions and then sends the whole big result back to the evaluator. So immediate evaluate would evaluate each time the function is done, which is it's subtly different, but it is different.
Yeah, and if map ever had different traversal orders, this would also be different. It'd be evaluating in
There
that.
might be side effecty things that would actually behave different.
Right.
Yes. I mean, that thing you just said, Rob, about is actually a pretty interesting feature. So, okay, Ian, traversal orders. Right. Okay, so basically what would happen is if there's a side effect, right? So the traversal order, if we have a map of func onto a list in some weird traversal order, we will not see that traversal order. In fact, we will never see the traversal order because func will never start getting evaluated until all of the map, until it's been sprayed everywhere by map. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of unexpected. I mean, in a sense, with a traversal order, you might expect an immediate evaluate there.
Be more like scan.
Scan does immediate evaluate? Does scan do immediate evaluate?
I think so.
Scan, it doesn't create the whole data structure.
I don't know the implementation. That seems to be the behavior.
Okay.
Scan is calling evaluate, yes.
Yeah, I think scan has to call evaluate each time the function is. So scan is immediate evaluate.
It throws the thing away. So
right.
There's nothing to return.
I see. Whereas map thinks it's not wasting anything by just creating everything and then calling the evaluator. Right. And that allows certain up values to work and things like this. Okay, so this is changing.
And
Well,
fold
I mean, these.
also, fold
I'm
also
sorry?
fold is also eagerly evaluating.
Okay. So for
Fold.
scan and fold, so you're saying for scan and fold, immediate evaluate does nothing.
I think so, yes.
But there is a
And-
question. I mean, there are three things immediate evaluate could do: sit there unevaluated, melt away, or actually do something.
We should do the first or the last.
Sorry, what would they?
I'm sorry, I missed something. What's the question?
I mean, it should
Okay,
either.
so what does
do-
immediate evaluate? Immediate evaluate has three possible behaviors. If you type it in on the top level, it just does nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's case number one. Case number two, it does its job, like in map.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Case number three is something like scan, where there is no job for it to do. And we presumably want it to melt away. You get what I'm saying? We don't want it to fail to work and to stay unevaluated in scan. We want it to be as if it was there, but just didn't happen to do anything.
Well, we could say it should behave like map. It should trigger an extra level of eval.
That's fine. That's fine. We could do that. But my point is that even those functions which automatically do immediate evaluate need to have some behavior with immediate evaluate. You get what I'm saying?
Sure, absolutely.
Right. So we need an inventory.
I don't think fold evaluates as it goes. Do we have proof of that? Right. If you fold over a held thing, I think
Put a print
it'll-
into it.
I think it has to because
It has to,
it has to get the intermediate results
Yeah.
for the next application. If otherwise you create these huge
Put-
symbolic.
Put a print in there.
disasters.
Yeah, which I think is what happens.
No,
I think that's evaluating as it goes along.
How will we tell? Well, it has to be. It just has to be.
I think it has to be.
yeah, I think nest and nest list also evaluate as they go.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
In any case, that's a so in those things it is essentially a no-op. Correct? But it would still get stripped. Whereas if it's just the function foo, it's not going to get stripped. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So one thing we need
Right.
here is an inventory of what functions we think are going to sort of do something with immediate evaluate, either strip it or use it. That make sense?
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, the obvious cases are map at, and probably replace part.
Yeah, but God knows, subset map and all these tons of other ones
Mhm.
that have all kinds of behaviors. Okay, so I'm a little troubled by the immediate evaluate versus evaluate. And this binding thing. And by the way, immediate evaluate of immediate binding of func should presumably melt away. Correct? Understand what I'm saying?
Presumably.
Okay. Well, I think we should try implementing this. These two things. What do other people think?
Right. I mean, the one thing about I don't necessarily object to that. One set of issues which we haven't discussed relate to if we use immediate evaluate in rule, or I guess rule delayed really is the interesting case. How does that combine with, condition and right? Because you can have all these various combinations of conditions in various places. But I guess we'll just have to work through that. But I'm just saying that
I'm not, it's not obvious to me what should happen there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm just pointing out that there is an issue a design issue we haven't discussed.
There are many. I'm sure there are many as we go through this and we look at actual functions and what they do and things like map that seem to have. I don't know what happens when they're a. I can imagine the weird possibility of an immediate evaluate. No, I cannot imagine the following, where there are multiple arguments and you want one of them to be inserted through binding and the other one not. Tough luck. Can't do that. Get what I'm saying? Like a map indexed or a supplied for that matter, where there are multiple parameters that should be bound. Do you understand the scenario?
You're saying that immediate substitute shouldn't work?
Immediate binding. I'm saying if you've got 3 values that could be immediately bound, it is not self-evident you would always want to immediately bind either none of them or all of them. I think it's
that's going to be so complicated.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's going to be a single argument anyway.
Yeah, I guess a question we should answer before we try to do, so where does immediate binding appear? It appears around a function in things like map, and it appears on the right-hand side of rules. Do we allow other places?
No. We don't need it in the right-hand side of rules because rules are automatically immediate binding.
I meant immediate evaluate for that case.
Okay, yes. And I'm sure there are 17 other cases which we have not immediately thought of here, which is what we have to go through. I'm not sure what this is. Evaluation during evaluation.
This is another issue to discuss. You skipped over we skipped over the supplied thing, and I just
we've got lots to talk about.
Not everybody here was in the meeting. I'm not sure that. I'm not convinced that we've solved that, but certainly not everybody here was on that previous meeting, so people should be right. Are we doing?
Sorry, what? Yes.
Well, so one question is, I guess so. One question is, do you agree with this summary here of, are we implementing all of these, both environment variables and supplied, one of them? Etc. But yes,
I think we definitely want. I think if the environment variables are semantically well defined, which I'm not 100% on, I think they're pretty nice. I'm just a little worried that they may be semantically confusing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
we're so you think we should start? So you think we should start with supplied rather than the environment variables?
Well, but supplied is here using the environment variable and the way you've set it up.
Well, I think that was my understanding that we were going to use that instead of strings. But if we want to use strings for now,
I think we should use strings. For supplied, because supplied is going to give an association, isn't it?
No. So the association thing is not needed if we have these actual environment variable symbols. So supplied would be this 2-argument thing that's just for wrapping an expression around a sequence of expressions.
Why does, I don't understand that first thing, the supplied of $$ position, comma F. That's simply saying feed to F, not only the
position.
expression, but also.
Mhm.
Right. Whereas if you wanted to only see the position,
Yeah.
you wrap it in a list. Right. So the convention was if it's a singleton, if it's not a list, then you add that thing to whatever is the normal list of things for that function.
But in particular, this object is like having a function which pulls in one of its arguments from the outside world or from the environment, basically.
Right.
That's what this is doing.
Yes.
So, I mean, the name.
Right. So I think Rob was there for this discussion, but maybe not Tom and Mark. So I just thought.
Well, supplying might be better in this case, maybe. Look, the other thing is we could ligaturize $, in some way to make it a little bit more attractive. But I think that's pretty nice, particularly if it's ligaturized and looks better. I think that's a pretty nice thing, programming wise. What do other people think?
Well, yeah, I think it's very nice, but we'll have to be pretty explicit on where, in what environments does it work?
Yes. Well, it's the same deal that we've got with immediate evaluate and immediate binding. This is all
pretty much. Yeah, it's quite similar.
Right. We live in environmentally conscious times. What can I say? Never mind. And in a sense, I'm sorry, I'm not going to extend this pun too much further about saving the environment in these variables. Never mind. I don't think it does much for the. Okay, immediate evaluate would save some CPU burning. Okay. All right. I think I need to go, but
okay.
I think please let's go ahead and try and do some implementation of these things. I think they're going to be a bunch of bumps. I think they're going to be a bunch of weird cases and issues.
Yep.
But let's at least start. And yeah.
Right. So I think Ian has in a branch a trial implementation of supplied for. Is it tree map? I think, or
tree map and tree scan.
And tree scan.
How does it feel?
Which is still.
Well, so it's extending the behavior that we had we were doing like level spec arrow data, level spec arrow subtree.
No, I'm asking you, when you've used it, does it seem like it's a good design?
Yeah.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right.
The places for trees are going to be nest tree, tree fold, and then the visual.
Yeah, I understand. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, when you've actually implemented it and you try using it, is it like, oh my gosh, this is crazy? And the answer is no, so far.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But so let's get it into some more, more familiar functions like map and so on, and let's see how it feels there. All right, I got to wrap.
Okay.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys. See you later.